It's time we start talking about Japanese promotional cards. Hello everyone and welcome to the CoroCoro Quest, where we believe that collecting is an adventure and adventures are more fun when shared with others, so hit that subscribe button down below to come join our adventuring party. Today we're going to talk about Japanese promotional cards, and this is something I've been kind of toying around with for a little bit, and I really just wanted to get it out there. They say hit the record button and just go. So I wanted to get at this topic of Japanese promotional cards. Now, if you watch a lot of the investment Pokemon videos, especially SM Pratt and others who, like him, who talk about collecting Pokemon, you are probably aware that from a collector standpoint, English set cards, English sets are really highly valued, moreover than their Japanese counterparts. However, the opposite is true when it comes to promotional cards, because Japan has released some amazing promotional cards that either have never seen the light of day in the States, or have some sort of unique distribution that's just really interesting and really fun. I mean, if you look at Illustrator Pikachu, you look at the trophy cards that are only available in Japanese. Some of the rarest cards in the hobby are only available that way, and there's something that's really unique about them, and SM Pratt talks about it all the time. He talks about cards that have a story, cards that have a unique distribution, some great artwork, and that describes many of the cards from Japanese promotional cards. In doing research, I have found that there's not a lot of great research done out there on Japanese promotional cards. I'm not saying the research hasn't been done, and I'm not saying it's hard to find. I'm just saying it's not really collected anywhere that makes it easy for someone to just hit in the search bar and find something about promotional card X, like whatever that card is. So I'm being a huge nerd and creating little one-shooters for every Japanese promotional card. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these eventually. I'm using them to get the information for this video. I might do something with them later. I don't know. It depends on how long I can sustain this type of content. But it's really interesting to me how these cards came about. There's some great stories, and I wanted to capture them on video so that anybody who's looking for them, whether now or in the future, can have these stories, have this information in one place. So the majority of this information does come from Bulbapedia. One kind of, I guess, one downside about the way they talk about Japanese promotional cards is they look at a card, they have one page for a card, and it'll talk about all its different printings and all its different languages. So even if it had different artwork along the way, it's just one page. Like, it's one page for a Fire Energy, knowing that Fire Energy has had, 70 different versions, and there's not a page for each one. I don't see that changing anytime in the future, but I do want to talk about each card separately, because each card does have a unique release, and there's unique features about each one. We're going to be talking exclusively about Japanese promotional cards, and any sort of other tidbits along the way, I'll let you know. The other source of information for this stuff is coming from PSA, eBay auctions, where the information looks reliable, or just getting the information off the PSA label, and then occasionally dipping into the E4 discussion boards, where a lot of very seasoned collectors have done a lot of great research and have put it out there, and you can find this stuff just by Google searching these cards. So none of this information is new or hard to find, but I'm trying to collect it in one place. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the very first promotional card released in Japan. This is Pikachu. These were unnumbered. Japan's early cards did not number their cards. Where we would normally see a card number on an English card, they had the Pokedex number. So, number 25 is in the bottom right corner of this card. But this is the very first promotional card released. It was released October 15th, 1996 in the CoroCoro comic. Now, CoroCoro comic is a serial comic magazine that has various different chapters of different comic series, different manga series, and was targeted. The age group targeted to this was younger males, in elementary school, basically. It's not like Shonen Jump, which was targeting like your teens. This is targeting the younger group, and this is where Pokemon has done a lot of their marketing over the last 2 decades. If you get a PSA version of this card, it is labeled as 1996 PM Japanese promo because, of course, it was the Pocket Monsters card game back then in Japan. This is called the ID Pikachu Glossy, and the note on the PSA label is CoroCoro Comics. Now, CoroCoro Comics has everything from Super Mario to Yokai Watch, and there's just a ton of interesting things in the magazine. You're welcome to pick one up. I'm pretty sure it's still in publication, and there's new issues every month. A lot of times having Pokemon promos in them, at least in the early days. I don't know if there's as much yet currently, as I'm doing all my research chronologically. So eventually, I'm going to be able to tell you. This card was released alongside Jigglypuff, which was also in the same magazine. This one is printed on glossy cardstock, and that is very important because this card has been reprinted with the same artwork several times. To my knowledge, CoroCoro comic version is the only one that has the glossy front to it, so you can tell the difference between this and another one that we will talk about in a little bit. I'm really shocked that this card has a low population report with PSA. As of recording this video, there are 17 total cards graded, and only 2 have the coveted Gem Mint 10. I would imagine that is because the distribution method of this card makes it difficult for it to get a perfect grade. Centering was notoriously challenging on these types of cards in the way they were printed. And there are only 4 that got a Mint 9, so 2 10s, 4 9s out of 17 cards that have been graded. It's pretty crazy. You can actually get this promo still. There's a lot of like moderately to heavily played versions that you can get for under $20. From a grading perspective, PSA 8 was recently sold for $500. So the quality of this card, of course, defines that grade, and of course the fact it's Pikachu and the fact it's the first card, there's a lot of story behind it. Shocking that the first card is not much more higher valued, but then again, like I said, you can still get a copy of this card pretty easily. Now, this was printed in English as the first World's Wizards of the Coast promo. It was released in July of 1999 and distributed through the Pokemon Leagues. So this artwork was made available in the US and can also that also does reduce the value a little bit. The next card that was released is the Jigglypuff. Now, this was released simultaneously with Pikachu, but Pikachu's more cool. Cooler? Words are hard. Pikachu's the mascot, right? So I put Pikachu before Jigglypuff. All the information is the same. Released CoroCoro Comics, October 15, 1996. The PSA label titles this as Jigglypuff Glossy, as the CoroCoro promo. And it also was released with the it was released later, like a month later, in a non-glossy version, which I'll talk about in a little bit. As far as PSA, this one also has a low pop report. 16 cards graded, 2 receiving the Gem Mint 10, and none at a Mint 9, which is pretty wild. Now, with the Jigglypuff, there are several examples of a PSA 9 off-center. Folks were tired of the low grade, so they decided to get it graded with the qualification that it was off-center, which means they basically ignore the centering and grade it based on the other 3 qualities, but it gives it that 9 OC grade, as seen with this one here. So this was released in the US as Wizards of the Coast promo number 7, which was part of the Pokemon the First Movie soundtrack promotion. So you can get this artwork in English, but again, there's some history behind the Japanese version. Now, both these cards, the Pikachu and the Jigglypuff, were released in November of 1996 with the Asobikata Volume 1 for the Pokemon card game that translates loosely into easily understand how to play Pokemon cards. So it's basically a how-to book that was released, and it had both the Pikachu and the Jigglypuff promo reprinted on a non-glossy cardstock. So that's the biggest differentiator between those 2 cards. Otherwise, the artwork's the same. Everything else is the same. PSA titles this is the Ivy Pikachu, and notes it as non-glossy. It does not have the source on the PSA label, so there you go. So even though the CoroCoro has only 17 graded copies, this one actually has a lot. There are 17 of these that sit at a Gem Mint 10, and another 23 that sit at a Mint 9. So that's pretty crazy when you consider the distribution of it, but honestly, I think it's got to be mostly because of the centering and the way the CoroCoro promos are on that peel back board, which is notorious for being off center. It is pretty easy to locate PSA graded copies on the secondary market at various grades. So you can get copies of this card under $20 raw in that moderately played to heavily played category. If you're just looking for a binder copy, most of the damage is on the back where you see the wear and tear around the card. So if you're just looking for something pretty to look at, you can find this card. Sealed copy of this magazine has surfaced recently for $200, which is pretty cool. Don't see that too often, but if you can find that for nostalgia, that's pretty neat. This card is a prime example of value based on condition, because a gem mint copy has recently sold for $1,250. So again, these PSA grades very important to a lot of collectors, and neat to see here. Of course, we also have to look at the Jigglypuff version that was reprinted, non-glossy, just like the Pikachu. Not going to go over all the details of this because it is identical to the Pikachu. They were released together as a set. The PSA has 16 Gem Mint 10s, as opposed to the 16 total graded copies of the CoroCoro version, and another sitting at Mint 9. And you can locate these graded copies on the secondary market. Now, this is Jigglypuff, and Jigglypuff doesn't pull the same weight as Pikachu. So a PSA 10 copy recently sold for $450. Pretty stark contrast to the Pikachu. But you can still get a raw copy of this card for a binder collection under $20. So still, for me, I think that's very surprising. These cards that are 24 years old at this point in time still surface from time to time at an obtainable price point. So if you're looking for something with some history, you may want to look for either the Pikachu or the Jigglypuff, whether it be the CoroCoro glossy version or the Asobikata version. Now, moving into January of 1997, this is the Mew promo, oftentimes called the Lily Pad Mew, sometimes called the Glossy Mew. This was a CoroCoro comic release, so just 6 months. I can't remember what date I said before. October? 4 months. All right. 4 months from October to January, CoroCoro releases another promotional card, and this one is Mew. Beautiful card. Cute Mew on the lily pad. This starts to build a set of CoroCoro comic promotional cards. They're all glossy. They all have a kind of a uniqueness to them. So you will see that PSA actually has a set registry just for these early unnumbered CoroCoro comic promos. I believe there's 32 in total. I'm not sure if I got that number quoted correctly, but this particular Mew card is one of the more heavily graded cards from the CoroCoro promo series. It's currently sitting at 101 graded copies with 31 Gem Mint 10s and 28 and a Mint 9. So clearly they have perfected, or at least gotten better with the printing process with this particular promo, that it was able to get some better grades. Now, raw copies of this card are a little more expensive, but not that much. You can find one between $20 and $30, based on condition, of course. And then you can find PSA copies popping up kind of all over the place. PSA 10 recently sold for $475, while PSA 9s circulate in the high 200s, which you kind of expect. You go a grade down, the value cuts in half. We did get an English version of this card, which is Wizards of the Coast promo number 47 in June of 2002, which was distributed through the Pokemon Leagues. There you go. And then just 2 more cards to talk about today. Both of these were released in the Pocket Monsters fan book. Now, I think this is a book or a magazine that you see sitting on the stand that's released periodically. That's like a collection of all things fun about a particular subject. In this case, Pocket Monsters. April of 1997 released this book. It's a cool book. From the images that we've seen, it doesn't surface much out there, but there have been a couple auctions where there's some pretty good pictures of the inside. Talks about everything from the video game to the card game to the anime. Pretty neat. This Mewtwo, which a lot of you may recognize if you were into the card game early on here in the U.S. Or internationally, outside of Japan, I should say. This is a glossy print card. It was one of 2 cards released with the Pocket Monsters fan book, and not many have surfaced for grading, which is very interesting. And I don't know if that's just because you never could find a good quality. Again, it could be a centering issue. Currently, only 14 have been graded, with only 2 receiving the Gem Mint 10 and 1 at a Mint 9. Most raw copies of this card are not in great condition, unfortunately, but you can still get a copy of this card for under $20. Most recently graded copies to surface on eBay have been 5s, unfortunately, and they were sold for like $6 because it's a 5. There are several 9 OCs out there. Most of them commanding a price about $50. One did sell last year for $400. I don't know if that was a fluke, because there's a 50 on either side of that. So, I don't know. This was printed as Wizards of the Coast promo number 3. You may remember it's stamped with a gold stamp that said Pokemon the First Movie on it, which is how you got that one here in the States. Never did we receive one that I'm aware of without the stamp on it. So that's pretty cool. And that was only one of 4 cards you got with the movie here in the at least in the US. I'm going to assume internationally. Mewtwo was packaged in this fan book with the Super Energy Retrieval, which is interesting. This was a unnumbered promotional card, also released in the Pocket Monsters fan book. This one's not as popular amongst collectors. It is not a Pokemon. Trainers, aside from like your prize card trainers, like actual trainer cards that are promotional cards are rarely ever valued high. But this one has a lot of debate around it, and mostly because Super Energy Retrieval was released in April 1997, but was also reprinted and also in a glossy print in 1999 for a CD promotion they did in Japan. So the challenge is, how do you determine the difference between these 2 cards? And I don't know if determining the actual difference is going to change the value, because I think there's so much confusion out there currently. And I do have to thank the people over at the collectors over at E4 who've kind of really broken this down and put this out there. So as far as specifically the Super Energy Retrieval that is labeled 1997 PM Japanese promo with PSA, there are only 8 graded copies, 110 and a couple of 9s. And I believe this is because this card has been miscategorized as that CD promo so often, whether it's with PSA or with the collector itself. So the fanbook version and the CD version there's only one sure way to tell the difference. There's nothing different about the printing. They're both considered glossy. But if you look at the card at an angle and you look at the side, the fanbook version actually curves towards the back, where the CD version curves towards the front. And I think that has a lot to do with the way these glossy cards were printed. And it's the only way to tell the difference. So I'd be curious to see how many... there's so many of the CD cards out on eBay to purchase. There are very few that are actually labeled this fan club version. So there's really no way to tell the difference except grabbing them up yourself and looking at this cross-section to see the difference. And I think you would have to be pretty stern with PSA determining which one is the one that you have. CD promos can be located under $20 in various conditions. Also, this card, I mean, again, I haven't seen any raw copies labeled fanbook version, so I don't know if they're just not out there or, again, mislabeled. The English did not see a printing of this card until it came out in a set, and it did come out in a set in Japan first, but it came out here in Neo Genesis. It was card number 89 in December 16, 2000. And also, when it came out in the Japanese set, it had different text because the term Basic Energy was not yet developed for the game. So you'll notice if you look at a copy of this card versus a copy that was in Neo Genesis, the text is completely different. The artwork is, however, the same. So that's my rundown, the first 7 cards. I know that's a lot, but it's a lot of fun for me to do this research and create these little one-sheeters. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these. Again, as I said before, hopefully you found this entertaining and informative. If you did not, could be an unboxing video. next week. So you come back for that. And yeah. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below and subscribe for more content just like this. Check out this video right over here, or just look at my set collection progress on the left. Remember, collecting is an adventure, and adventures are more fun when shared with others. I'll see you again next time.